listener emails on episode 521 of the Actual Astronomy Podcast. I'm Chris. Joining me is Shane. We are amateur astronomers who love looking up the night sky, and this podcast is for everybody who goes out under the stars. So we haven't done a listener email show in a while, Shane. I at least not one this year.
Yeah, it's been a little while. We've had some other new content like the monthly Messier list and obviously the Observer's calendar, but yeah, it's time to share some of the emails we've received.
Yeah. And before we get into that, though, were you saying that you're not as interested in gear as you once were? Did I mishear you on that one?
No, like I still have an interest in gear. I haven't really been looking at gear. Pretty happy with everything I have. Like I don't have a need, right?
Yeah.
So just haven't been researching anything or really looking at anything new. I'm excited to get the Pi Finder out. I still haven't done that yet. It's just been too cold and too cloudy.
Yeah.
But I did order just some odds and ends to try to help mount it differently, so
Oh,
that it's
okay.
not on kind of the back end of the telescope causing potential balance issues with the bino viewer. So I bought some Finder like dovetail shoes that this thing can be mounted on. And then I'm trying to find a way then to mount those shoes either directly to the saddle on my mount or some other place that's kind of central so that I can again avoid the potential balance issues here. So
Yeah.
got that. I got an intriguing new red flashlight that
Oh,
try. It's from the David Chandler Company, and it's advertised as a red astronomy light and dimmable and all of the things. Now, maybe I'll just describe like the physical characteristics first. It is exceptionally light. It operates on I think probably like a CR like 2023 battery or something like that, like a small sort of flat battery that will work well in the cold, which is important. But like this thing maybe weighs 10 or 15 grams. So like you
is
wouldn't,
this little flat one that I'm looking at now?
probably, yeah. And it has a little clip on it. So like you can clip it to a
Okay.
lanyard or whatever you want. And again, you wouldn't know that this thing is even like around your neck for how light it is. And it has one red LED on it. And when you just turn it on with one press of the button, it's at full lumens. And I'm not sure how bright it is, but it's certainly bright enough that if you drop something on the ground, you're going to find it. Like it's bright. Too bright, really, for astronomy. Um, and then when it's on in this mode, you just hold the button down, and then it just continually steps it down to the lowest moonlight sort of lumens, which is quite dim,
Hmm.
actually. Now, so that's mode one. Now, the other mode, let's say you're an astronomer and you just want it to start in that super dim mode. Instead of just pressing the button to turn it on, you hold the button and then it turns it on into moonlight mode.
Oh,
And then you can brighten it from there by holding the button down.
oh.
So I haven't really given it like a thorough test, but like in a dark bathroom in my house, no lights, door closed.
Bathroom test. I do the
Well,
same thing.
has
I
to,
do
right?
this. I'm laughing because I do the same thing. We have a bathroom without any windows in the middle of the
Yes.
house, and that's
Yeah.
that's how I test all this stuff myself. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the only room without a window that we have. So anyway, it seemed not overly bright in the lowest mode. And another kind of neat thing is as you could probably see in the image, Chris, like it lays flat. So like if you
Mm,
want to put it on your notebook to
mm.
sketch or just to write your observations down, it'll work quite well for that too. And so more to come. Like when I actually use it by the telescope, I'll maybe give an updated report.
Huh.
But I'm optimistic. Not that I needed a new light. When I ordered those odds and ends, you're probably the same, Chris. Like you're paying $20, $30 for shipping,
Yeah.
and like I think my order was like almost the same amount as shipping. So I thought, like, is there anything else I need or want that I can
Yeah.
kind of fit into the order? And when I saw this thing, I added it. And I think it was like $19 Canadian or maybe no more than 25. It wasn't very expensive. And I think it's actually going to be a fairly nice light.
Huh. Where'd you get it from?
All Star Telescope
Okay.
in Alberta.
Yeah, I might have to try to get one of these and check it out. I mean, I've got a lot of red lights, but I sort of always feel like I never have enough red lights. But I don't have as many like ones that were made for doing astronomy with that kind of level of dimmability. And I liked how small it was to be able just to drop on my sketching book.
Hmm.
Yeah, I really like that quite a bit because I'm using the gooseneck ones and they're good. They're really good, but something like that could be perhaps slightly better. I don't know. Willing to try it though. Nothing
Yeah,
ever
my
seems like it works as well as you want it. Yeah, but
my only concern, like it's hard to evaluate like if it's too bright until you're really dark adapted and at a dark place.
mm,
The bathroom test kind of works, but I've
yeah,
done that before and I think, oh, this is perfect. And then I get dark adapted in a real dark place, turn on the light, and it's blinding,
yeah,
because it's just too bright. And
yeah,
I'm a little concerned. So we'll see what it is, or we'll see how it operates in those conditions.
yeah, yep. Cool. Very cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, nothing here for me. I'm still just thinking about. I think probably the next thing I should get is a probably one of the cat's perch chairs. So kind of keeping a little bit of money aside for that. But to be honest, this kind of goes back to the topic of our podcast here. Is I was saying to you before, I've been really quite busy at work, and I've been trying to get the calendar underway. I was telling you a little bit about that last week or the week before, whenever it was, and that's been really busy. And then it seems like what happens is we get these emails from folks and I'll read them and then I'll think to myself, I'll reply to that tonight when I get home. And then there was like about a 2 or 3 week period there where I was like just working on the calendar every night for 2027.
Mm.
And of course, when you're doing that, it's like that's what you're doing, So I wasn't getting around to replying to folks, and as well, there's a lot of weird viruses on the go, and I had some sort of strange stomach virus there one week, and that kind of knocked the wind out of my sails. I even had to take a day or so off work, which is a little bit unusual for me. So
Hmm.
uh, wasn't too happy with that. Not sure if you've been the unfortunate recipient of any of these weird and wacky viruses, Shane, but that one was
No.
pretty unpleasant. So.
Yeah, I've been fortunate, knock on wood, if I can find it here. But yeah, I've avoided flu season so far.
Yeah,
No ailments.
yeah. I didn't get a cold. Usually I get a cold or the flu or something is not that uncommon every other year or so, but holy smokes, that this was just a stomach type thing. And yeah, it was not pleasant, but could
Hmm.
be certainly worse. In that light, we had an email from Larry. Let me read through this. I was chatting to him about it. Larry writes, "Hi, Chris and Shane. Always enjoying the podcast. Keep up the good work. Thanks, Larry. I'm writing, asking advice on my first small refractor to get. It's not really my first, but the first in 30 years. As background, I have a 14-inch Dobsonian and a 3.5-inch Maksutov at a relatively dark site with good transparency and terrible seeing. My main goal is seeing some of the wide field objects, especially extended objects such as the California Nebula, which I absolutely cannot see in my Dob. And even though I can spot 14th and 15th magnitude galaxies, it just doesn't have the wide field enough to capture that. Both the Dobsonian and Maksutov have relatively small fields. I have heard you mention the Witch Head Nebula, which I have also failed to see, probably due to its size. Sharp views of the planets would be amazing, but with the seeing here in the Colorado Rockies, I have low expectations. The mountains cause lots of turbulence, so I think the better plan is to augment my existing scopes with a wide field, low power instrument. I'm guessing I'm asking about apochromat or achromat, and should I look for a small 60 to 80 millimeter or push to 100 or 120? Any advice on a mount? I would like a solid Aldaz mount. I don't need go-to for these purposes. I plan to mount this onto an existing pier I have. Thank you, Larry. PS Astronomics have a good sale on right now from Explore Scientific, so I'm tempted to get something from them. Any thoughts there, Shane?
Well, yeah, it's the mount that I use pretty much all of the time, which is the Stellarvue M2C. It's a fairly well-priced mount, in my opinion, anyway, for what you get, and
Mm.
it doesn't get much more basic. It's a simple alt-az mount. There's two clutches, for the two axes, so you can apply friction to whatever level you desire, and it's just a really solid mount. So I have that. I have the pier extender just to get it a little further away from the tripod, which is important for a refractor. And like well, when I had the 120 millimeter Skywatcher ED, I would put that telescope on it, and it did a fairly good job as long as I had a good tripod. If I did have a kind of an insufficient tripod and it wasn't very enjoyable like that, but yeah, it did the 120 well. It handles the 102 TSA quite well, and obviously anything smaller, it does well there. And if you're ever interested in digital setting circles, it is compatible with Nexus encoders.
What are your thoughts on Apochromat versus Achromat?
Um, I think he said, did he talk about planets? I'm just
No,
looking back here. Yeah.
no planets.
Yeah, I think acromats are fine. I've got a couple acromats myself that I use from time to time, and they provide outstanding views. Sure, if I'm looking at Venus, I see some other colors that I know don't belong there, but it's not that often that I'm looking at things that bright. So, I'm quite a fan of acromats and apochromats. Like you can't go wrong with either. But Chris, your 7-inch being an achromat sure disproves that acromats are inferior, right?
Yeah, yeah. I suppose my concern isn't it's not really so much Apochromat versus Achromat, which seems to be like an overriding way that many people look at things. And I think one of the challenges there is that many of the acromats, I would say the majority of them that are out there are they tend to be more like a budget scope, right?
Hmm.
And for that reason, like don't have as good a focuser or maybe a few of the other things that come along. And then, like it used to be the case where you'd get like an 80 millimeter f5 and then maybe upgrade the focuser and a few other things and spend some time on it. But now the cost of really good 70 or 80 millimeter apochromats with really great, awesome focusers and those accessories are cheaper than getting the sort of the more budget friendly Acromat and then upgrading it. So it
Hmm.
just doesn't make any kind of economical sense to try to save any money because you're not by getting into that Acromat, which many of them have like plastic cells and that sort of thing with which come with all kinds of limitations. Did mention the Explorer Scientific. I haven't looked through any of the Explorer Scientific scopes, and there are good acromats out there. That's for sure. But just I always say like be careful in what you're getting with the acromats. Just simply because I feel like there's almost more of a broader range of like types of acromats that are there. As far as what I'd recommend for that kind of wide field stuff, I really think going to at least an 80 or 100 millimeter scope is probably going to get you what you're looking for, and not to be afraid of the used market either. Certainly, there's lots of good instruments out there, but I can't remember what I recommended. I mean, there are such great 100 millimeter and 80 millimeter apochromats and acromats that are around. I looked at some of those Explore Science that I don't know if they're still on sale. I believe they've even dropped the prices like permanently or something. And they look like excellent scopes. I'm sure they're really great. It looks like they have excellent hardware and cells and all that kind of stuff. So they should be more than handy enough to do the job. I would think, Shane.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree.
And then as far as a mount goes, yeah, like the M2 from Stellarvue is good. And then for maybe somewhat lighter loads, I think that even that SV Boney mount, I think it's like the 228 or something like that, is apparently, I haven't used one, but by all reports, we had a number of people write in one month. I think the price had dropped on it, and people were saying it was excellent as well. So there's certainly lots of gear out there. When it comes to seeing these wide field objects, though, what you want is a good 2-inch diagonal, which you're not going to have, sounding like where he's coming from, and then a nice wide field ocular. So, Shane, I know you've got a couple of wide, excuse me, wide field eyepieces. What do you recommend?
I don't think he listed a budget either, did he?
No.
No. Um, well, for me, like, eye relief is part of the equation for the wide field eyepieces, and sometimes wide field eyepieces and eye relief don't go along together, but sometimes they do. So for me, I really am a huge fan of the 24 millimeter Panoptic, beautiful inch and a quarter eyepiece. If you're looking for 2-inch eyepieces, I'm a huge fan of the 30 millimeter APM UFF. It's just such a great value and such a great performer. But I also enjoy that 31 Nagler and the 41 millimeter Panoptic. They're nice. The 40 millimeter Pentex XW that you have is beautiful. A lot of good choices there, and you get into some of the mid focal lengths too. There's a whole pile of other options there.
Yeah. And I think those are all good ones you've listed. One of the eyepieces I really like, which kind of gets a mixed bag of reviews, but I do really like it, and there's a few listeners that have bought it that have really liked it as well, as the Masuyama 32 millimeter. It's sort of a mid-priced eyepiece, sort of a lower-priced eyepiece compared to many of those options. It's lightweight, which can be good when you're talking about getting one of these smaller instruments, and
Hmm.
and has about but not quite the max field of view that you're going to be able to squeeze out of a 2-inch focuser eyepiece diagonal combination in a small instrument, and gives a nice exit pupil as well without the weight. The UFF does similar, but in comparison, Mike and I noticed that the Masuyama passes more light. The UFF is sharper. Um, but those are kind of the trade-offs with them. You almost want to have both. Like we went back and forth and equally enjoyed the views through both of them. So it's really hard to declare any kind of real winner with those. The Masuyama definitely is not as flat, not as sharp towards the edge. It's pretty obvious. And then when you put the UFF in, you see how flat that field is. It's just really amazing. But you do notice that it doesn't quite pass as much light, so it's
Hmm.
sort of like a bit of, you kind of wish like they could have got together and made the ultimate, lightweight, 30 odd ish millimeter eyepiece. That would have been something special. But anyway, whatever. Cool. All right. Do you want to read the next one? Oh yeah, this one I felt bad because Yorick wrote, and I read his email, and he spent a long time writing the email and including some photos, Shane, and and then I realized I didn't get back to him. I felt quite
Oh,
horrible. So
sure.
anyway,
Let's take a run at it. How about I read the first half and maybe I'll
yes,
pass the baton to you to talk or to read the observation portion.
yep,
Okay, so starts off with I hope you're doing well. It's been a while since I wrote you an email, partly because I'm more of excuse me, more of an astrophotographer than a visual observer. With two daughters aged 3 and 5, I don't get as many opportunities to go to a dark site to observe visually. But when I do get the chance, I love the experience and tell myself I should go out more. Recently, I bought a new final telescope. I love that, Chris. There's always a new final when it comes to astronomy. And the telescope was an ASCAR 140 APO with both visual observation and astrophotography in mind. Of course, I read up on the telescope beforehand, making sure it suited my needs and my mount, which is a Skywatcher EQ6R Pro, and made sure that the mount could handle it. But still, when it came to unboxing it, I was blown away by the size of it. see the attached images. It's about the size of my desk. I've had to install a pure extender on my tripod to prevent having to lay down on the floor when observing near zenith or hitting the tripod legs. I absolutely love the telescope, and it's so well thought out. Features like an easily extendable, retractable section to accommodate for easy switching from single eyepiece to bino viewer are a big plus. I promise I'm not paid by ASCAR, and the scope has its quirks as well. In photography, I noticed that tightening the dew shield set screw just a little too much caused pinching of the front cell, a clear spike to one side of bright stars, and a bite taken out of the opposite side. I've yet to notice any aberrations like that in visual observing through the scope. I was wondering whether you have any experience with noticing the effects of pinched optics in observing visually. I can imagine it could interfere with splitting doubles, although I was able to split the double-double in Lyra with no problem. Chris, I think you've had some pinched optics in the past.
Yeah, it's not uncommon, sadly, and it almost doesn't matter. I've seen and heard examples of just about every telescope under the sun having that. It is something you have to be aware of. And my when I first got my Pentax Borg, it had horribly pinched optics, and the next one was even worse. I sent it back, the cell assembly and lenses, and then they sent me another one, and then sort of three times the charm. The third one they sent was fine, but yeah, it wasn't good, and yeah, it will impact your views. So be aware of that. I would get in touch with the manufacturer if for anything, just to put a highlight on that. I haven't heard that happening so much with the ASCARs, like generally, but I know it's something that many of the manufacturers have to deal with, and a lot of it comes down to not using temperature compensating cells. So it's something that you might notice in the winter time, but you don't notice in the summer, and you have to kind of be a little bit aware of as you're using the instrument. But yeah, I mean, it happens. It happens in scopes, and if it is just when you're tightening that set screw, I don't know. Sometimes if you rotate the dew shield and then tighten it somewhere else, you may not notice it. But I kind of feel like you probably already tried that. But yeah, that happens, Shane.
Yeah. It's too bad, but at least in this case with the ASCAR 140, it's pretty easy to resolve. Just loosen that dew shield screw a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, back to the email. On December 21st, I took the telescope out to a relatively dark site, at least to me, which is a Bortle 3 and Bortle 6 at home. At the start of the session, I had some high clouds, as you can see in the attached photos, but luckily these soon drifted off. I've attached sketches I made of four of the objects on the night, including inverted, darkened versions. In these, I tried to simulate what the view through the eyepiece really looked like. I'm thoroughly impressed with this scope, and it's shown me objects that I wasn't able to confirm in my 8-inch reflector. So the gear used, again, the ASCAR 140. Eyepieces are all Explore Scientific, I think. Yep. So a 9mm 100 degree, 18mm 82 degree, 28mm 82 degree, and then a 40mm 68 degree. Then he has an Auriga linear bino viewer with a 2x beta Hyperion zoom, 8x24. That's a great setup.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then some filters. Has the Antlia ALP-T dual narrow band HA03 5 nanometers, is it?
Yeah.
Nano? Yeah. This is a photographic filter, but the tighter FWHM makes for very high contrast visually, I find. Interesting. I'm not familiar at all with that filter. How about you, Chris?
A little bit. We talked about them a few weeks ago, so I won't go into them. Yeah.
Yeah. And then also an Astronomic O3 visual in the 12 nanometer spectrum. So great setup. And I've been kind of curious myself about that ASCAR 140, and to hear that it surpassed an 8-inch reflector is quite impressive.
Yeah.
All right, over to you, sir.
I started out on Saturn. Using a 9 millimeter, 108 power, it was a lovely sight. The rings were edge on and could see several of the moons. Next up was Jupiter using about 50 power. The planet held steady and increased the power to about 108, made for a nice sight. And then he went on to observe the veil, sent us this great, nice sketch of the NGC 6992 portion of the veil, and then a sketch of M42 and M43, which is quite lovely, and a sketch of the rosette using the 140 and then M81 and M82, as well as the NGC 281, the Pac-Man Nebula. I also did some observations of the double cluster and NGC 2392, which we talked about in the last episode. I concluded the session around 2 o'clock in the morning and spent about 5 hours out observing before I was starting to get too cold and tired. Still had to pack up and drive the hour home. For the first visual session with the new scope, I felt very satisfied and hungry for more. Definitely try to get out visual observing with this telescope. Kind regards, Yorick in the Netherlands. Thanks so much, Yorick.
Yeah.
We had an email from Kirk. Kirk said, I recently ran across Shane's interview on the Seven Pods Astronomy Club on YouTube about his small telescope collection and his thoughts on small objects. That led me to listen to your podcast 125 about the same. Both were great listens. I already have an 8-inch Dob Altaz SCT and an 18-inch Dobsonian. Never considered the refractor until recently. At times, I feel a bit confined by my current telescopes, especially the Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope. I like the idea of fitting objects like the Veil, Rosette, Pac-Man nebulas, double cluster, Leo trio, many more into the single field of view. I was looking for something around the 90 to 500 or the 90 millimeter and 500 to 560 focal length range to enter into the refractor waters. I ended up with an ASCAR 80 millimeter ED at 560 millimeter focal length, which is f7. Not a short tube, but it is less than half the focal length of any other scope I own. Not a top end scope, but I think it will be fine as an ED doublet. Followed the advice of Shane and many others on getting a doublet for visual and saving money and weight versus a triplet. I had no mount, but I also got a Skywatcher EQ-AL 855i Pro. It was like Christmas all over again. I have been using the new scope and mount a few times from the backyard in the city. Viewing was poor in the Bortle 9 skies, but I was able to see Jupiter and M38 and the double cluster. Ryan is behind a tree at the moment. Mount is great. I'm getting a handset for the mount. The interface and app on the phone is nice, but I'll probably still use it and use a phone and tablet and PC in the field. I also got the mount connected to Stellarium on my laptop. While that is a cool idea, I don't have much use for it in the field. Maybe someday I'll do more with that. Trying to get out to dark skies soon with the new telescope. Shane, I'd love to hear that you're using AI to help build this. Super cool stuff. And he sent along a couple of the different lists. I did take a look at those briefly. Pretty cool. Also, the Texas Star Party has started registration. If people are interested, they can go to the Texas Star Party 2026 Come for the Sky, Stay for the People website. Not sure if you're able to go or not. I'm trying to get some friends interested to go. I've never been to a 5-day star party like this, where there are dozens of amateurs there and even equipment manufacturers. Looks like a lot of fun. It's near the McDonald Observatory. Y'all should come down. Yeah, I agree. Great work, gentlemen. Love the podcast, Clear Skies. Yeah, I would love to go down to the TSP. That's yeah, I would just like to do this podcast and travel around and do astronomy, Shane, all things considered.
Yeah, it would be super fun to do like just the Star Party tour, and like for like just to try them all and do a whole bunch of observing. I know a number of them happen at the same time, but
Yeah.
you can certainly plot quite a few of them on the calendar and kind of make this a monthly thing if you really wanted to.
Yeah, it would just be cool. I always just enjoy meeting other observers and observing with them and seeing what other people are using and how other people are observing and just and it's also like just really cool. Like you just go up to a group of observers and like, hey, like, what's everybody looking at? And then they're looking at something and you look in and, you can kind of do that with your go-to system, but it really is cool. And then like, as you're observing, like somebody like, hey, did you notice, I don't know, like this gap in Saturn's rings, or did you notice this dark void in M42 before? And you're like, I've never noticed that before. I've looked at M42 like a million times and never seen that. And it's just so cool to do. And if that's not a plug for Star Party Sheen, I don't know what is, because I don't know how else you would learn any of that stuff other than going out and observing with other people. And going to a Star Party is one of the best ways to get into doing that type of observing with other people.
Yeah, yeah, they're a ton of fun. It's just great to be around like-minded, amateur astronomers, and yeah, there's nothing bad that comes out of it. I really enjoy them.
Yeah. And I'm still involved in the grasslands and the stuff that goes on there. But like as time goes on, like I am gonna cut back on doing, I think, my other astronomy commitments so that I can do more of this type of astronomy stuff, sort of extension from the podcast stuff, which is like no offense to any of the other stuff that I do, but it is like my favorite thing to do when it comes to like anything not actually like looking through a telescope. It is so much fun. And in the past, when I've gone to star parties and met up with listeners and other folks, that is just so much fun. And I would like to get down to TSPA. I was talking to a couple people about the Golden State Star Party, the GSSSP, which is in the middle of July, which I'm already committed to doing grassland stuff around that time. Um, and then I know there's other star parties. I got to admit though, if I'm gonna go to California, and I shouldn't say if, like I'm gonna go to California. We have friends there that we haven't seen in too long. Um, and yeah, I'm probably gonna want to go in a colder month. Like right now. This would be a great time to be in California, Shane,
Yeah, yeah, anywhere but here, probably. It's so
to
cold.
say the least. And I know they were having lots of rain there recently, but Richard was sending us some nice emails about being able to get out observing and again, like it's almost, yeah, it would be cool. Anyway, might be talking to Richard more soon. All right, Peter's email. Do you want to take a crack at this one?
Yep. He said, "Hey, Chris and Shane, excellent episode on the Messier objects. Your point about less interesting Messier objects distracting observers from the more interesting objects in the NGC and other collections is an important one. I wonder if the astronomy community has been quite fair to Messier. The widespread dismissal of Messier's work as just identifying objects that could be mistaken for comets seems a bit overdone to me, especially on reading the English translation of his 1771 paper. That paper reads like an astronomer cataloging his discoveries rather than the work of a ferret of comets. Also, whatever was the motivation for it, it was the first systematic catalog of DSOs. For its time, it was surely a great achievement. I think,
I just want to pause there though, because I think like this is a great paragraph.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, it is.
and there's a little bit to dive into. And Peter is a long-term correspondent, so people should know that because I may disagree with him here slightly, and that's all going to be taken in good stride. Yeah, and that's cool that he went through and did the translation, and I agree. I think I have read it, and as a boy, a pretty rough French reader and not French speaker anymore because I just haven't done it in so many years. Yeah, it does read kind of like that it is more like he was cataloging it. Um, and for the longest time, he was thought to be the first, but really he was among the first. And what it was, this is, and I'm not really disagreeing so much as this was like a change in thinking of people and the incremental development of science of categorizing and cataloging things. And that kind of started with Aristotle and perhaps a few people before them. And if we just sort of think about even like I forget the guy who wrote the didactic poem, but he was Aristarchus or somebody like that. but it was like the way that we wrote stuff down as humans and the way that we kind of had more of a running narrative, and when we think about the first early um, cataloging of the stars, like for example, when they were first cataloging the stars, I think it was some of the Greeks, and they would describe like Betelgeuse, which we know is Betelgeuse now, thanks to the Arabic astronomers. But it was referred to before them as the bright red star on the right shoulder of Orion. It had like a very lengthy description to it, even though cataloged. And then it was the Arabic astronomers that actually, noted that. But if you go through like Ptolemy's Almagest, um, you'll see that he will even refer to like fuzzy spots in the sky. And yes, it's in and amongst all this other stuff, but we just hadn't got to the point where they were kind of just pulling those things out individually. And even Abdul al-Sufi in the I think like 965 in his book of fixed stars referred to a few things, including like what we know of as the coat hanger asterism or cluster now CR 399. But they weren't broken out. But then other people have broken them out. And then what happened is, as the telescope came into use, there were some observers who were going and doing this type of thing. Like Galileo didn't, strangely enough, but he did note a lot of this stuff. And you can kind of go back and pull out like the different observers who found this, that, or the other object. But very soon after Galileo, the first person they have who was using an instrument to go and look at stuff and then write it down and chart it and catalog it was Hodierna in the early 1600s. Sometime between like 1619 and 1640 something. And he cataloged a few dozen objects in the nighttime sky and had gone through a very early process of cataloging. And there was a few others. I think Piccolomini was one of the Italian astronomers who also started cataloging things even before Hodierna. But there it was sort of like a development in science that you would kind of go and do this type of thing. And so it is really tough to say, okay, like Messier was the first person to go and do it systematically. Maybe not quite. Even might have been Cassini or somebody like that was also cataloging some things. So there were like a handful of people that were doing this. And then their works were either lost or misinterpreted, or like a lot of the ideas and concepts persisted but were devalued. So that because, for example, if we think about Abdul al-Sufi's discovery, quote unquote, of the Colander 399, the coat hanger, which is quote unquote just an asterism, see, like then that kind of gets sort of tossed out with the bathwater, so to speak, because it's, quote unquote, not an actual cluster. And so anyway, there's a lot to that in the development of it. But anyway, I'm gonna stop and just recommend, and in particular for Peter. Peter, you should track down a copy of the Search for the Nebulae by Ken Glyn Jones. And anyway, that is very eye-opening. It's a super cheap book, widely available, and it's like pamphlet thin. I've got a copy of it, and if you read like a lot of deep sky stuff, you'll see that book referenced, and that's how they're kind of writing the articles. Is as many of the popular astronomy articles on deep sky observing that exist in popular literature over the past half century are based on that book. But anyway, I digress, Shane. I'll let you keep going.
Okay. Uh, let's see here. So Peter goes on to say, I think my search for a tracking alt-az mount for visual astronomy has reached its conclusion. I spent a good part of last year trying to get one of my AM5 mounts to work in alt-az. It should work, but ZWO simply does not support that use case adequately, and I never was happy with what I could get out of it. So last week, I got a Skywatcher Wave 100i, which is a strain wave mount. I'm not familiar with that.
I've seen that one. It's It's a sweet ride.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Peter says that Skywatcher provides much better support for the Alt-Az mode in its mounts. So I had a bit of trouble getting started, but last night I got it going. I used the SynScan app to operate it, but I also have a SynScan handset that I will try as well. For alignment, I just pointed the scope north and leveled it. Then I did a 2-star alignment. The Go-To placed each target in the center of the field of view, and the tracking seemed to be excellent. They provide a second saddle so that 2 scopes can be mounted, which I'll try soon. The weight limit is 22 pounds without a counterweight, which is more than any of my scopes. The mount is whisper quiet, so I'm very happy so far. Clear skies from Peter. Well, thanks for mentioning that mount, because like I say, I'm going to do a little research. I've never seen it before.
Yeah, it's one of those strain wave ones, um, and it has decent carrying capacity. I think there was a review in Sky and Telescope, or Ellen Dyer did one or something. Um, yeah, that technology has really come along, and I got to admit, and like I have some Skywatcher mounts, and I had trouble with one and sent it back into their support, and their support is excellent, which quickly made me buy another Skywatcher mount when I got my big scope. Um, I'm not knocking on any of the other manufacturers. It's really don't have that much experience with them. I'm sure many of them are good. But it's kind of, it seems like maybe like a big company like Skywatcher, maybe you might make some assumptions, but they are really, really great with their support. I mean, awesome, perfect. I have no complaints about getting support from them for their products. And, I know that AZEQ6 that I have, which is now more than a dozen years old, and have my old 7-inch refractor on. I mean, it works so well. Like it's kind of wild. And Mike went out and bought an equally as old one used, um, and is slowly getting that running as well for a C11. Um, yeah, the Skywatcher stuff. I mean, it is quite excellent stuff. Really, it is. So. I got no reservations about making any recommendations about trying out one of their mounts because if you do have trouble with it, you can reach out to them and send it back in if you do have that kind of trouble, unfortunately. But they will work on their stuff and get it working, and they're excellent to deal with, super quick at responding to things. So yeah, nice. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'd like to get one of these strain waves at some point in time for sure.
Yeah, I'm just reading about it. This particular one from Skywatcher can also track satellites and the space station. It can slew at a rate of 7.5 degrees per second. That
Cool.
is very fast. Wow.
Yeah. I saw your note there. I'm not going to read Richard's because I think we're going to try to have Richard on soon, Shane.
Sounds good.
Maybe even before this this goes out. So might be a little bit redundant to read his email. We'll go down to Seth. Maybe I'll read Seth's email to us. Thank you as always for your excellent podcast. I look forward to each new episode. I hope you have had or will soon have enough warm temperatures to observe again. Me too. It is. It has been minus 40 here, Celsius, which for those doing the conversion is also minus 40 Fahrenheit. Over the holidays last year, our family get together included grandchildren and nieces ranging from 3 to 9 years. They were very excited to look through a telescope, and the skies were good and clear. Despite heavy light pollution in our neighborhood, Saturn, Jupiter, the Moon, and Pleiades were visible. M31 was findable. I'm sharing my experience in the hope that others will provide tips on how to make visual astronomy a good experience for young children. I started with the moon, bright and easy to view. The children of all ages could see it through a wide-angle eyepiece in my 4-inch refractor. Instructions to all were, don't touch the telescope, keep both eyes open, and slowly move your eye towards the eyepiece. The 3-year-old went first. I lifted him up onto the observing chair, adjusted to the proper height. He was attentive and made an effort to view the eyepiece. Initially, the light of the moon was projected onto his forehead. which I've seen this before. I'm laughing. It's just funny. Using the light cone, I could position his eye appropriately. The 5-year-old found the proper eye position with some coaching, but lasted only a few seconds before returning to uh, chase others in a game of tag in the dark. I am not sure they saw anything other than the moon. The 9-year-old made a concerted effort to see each object. He reported seeing the moon, Jupiter and its moons, and the Pleiades. But he was unable to see M31, which was but a faint smudge as seen from our neighborhood light pollution. I remember showing him stars on a trip to Tanglewood in Western Massachusetts when he was 4 or 5. Even at that young age, he was able to position his eye correctly to see stars through a 60 millimeter refractor. Clearly, children vary in their ability to accurately view through a telescope. It depends not only on the age of the child, but also individual abilities. The observing chair adjusted to the size of each child, and that was very helpful. Lifting the 3-year-old up to the eyepiece just does not work. Starting with a bright and easy object helped to maximize success. Light being projected onto the face can act as a guide that's referring to using the moon. I'd be interested to know what others do to make astronomy with a telescope a fruitful experience for young children of various ages. Our astronomy club is often asked to give viewings to elementary school age children. Tips on how to optimize their astronomical experience would be very helpful. Clear skies. Seth. So, Shane, what are your thoughts on sharing the night sky with younger children?
Oh, it's a lot of fun. Especially when they start to learn a little bit about the solar system and the universe in school.
Mm,
They have such curiosity. And, like I don't have children, but I have nieces and nephews that current age ranges, I think, are like 7 to about 26. And all of them I've been around since they were born. So, got to experience them kind of growing up. And like, even at like the youngest of ages when they can start to talk, like almost every kid can recognize the moon, and we'll point it out if they're in the car seat and you're driving and they see it through the window, and they're fascinated by it.
yeah,
And I think definitely when I've shown them, the moon and Saturn and other things through the telescope for the first time, it is quite magical.
yeah,
However, their attention span sometimes is, not really not conducive to like any kind of long-term observing, but it is
yeah,
fun to show them that stuff. And, I've learned too to like kind of stick to like the key showpiece items. There was a a number of years ago. I think it was that Comet Holmes. It's kind of a big faint ball, if you remember
yeah.
that one.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I showed my young nephew that at the time, and he was very unimpressed. And in hindsight, I see why, right? It's not what I think a young person, or even just like somebody maybe not too well versed in astronomy, would appreciate. But
Yeah.
anyway, showing kids stuff is super fun. You have to work out a little bit of the logistics of making sure they can get up to the eyepiece, whether it's with a little step stool or ladder, or you are able to lower your tripod. But it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I have to comment on the 3-year-old. I've had this so many times, and I'm not sure why it bothers me, but it kind of does a bit where, we'll be doing outreach, and then there's the parent that shows up with this very small child, and they for whatever reason they really want the child to have a look through the telescope, and the child's like, I mean, I've had them like the child is just totally asleep, not really aware of what's going on. They're just like way too young, and I think there is like an age where they are just too young and they're not going to get anything out of it, like to be frank, because do have to understand a few things. I think getting into like that 5 kind of 6-year-old range is where younger folks are going to really start to have a good concept of what this is, what they're looking at, that this is a thing that's going to show them something in space at least. But anybody who's younger than that may struggle to understand those kind of concepts, and it always seems like a bit of a waste because usually that can take a long time to get lined up for the kid, and then like I've seen the same thing where like the moon is being projected onto their forehead and the parent is just like forever trying to grapple with them, and it's dark, and it just like it always sometimes it can feel even a bit sketchy because they're like trying to like angle their small child to the eyepiece in the dark. It just doesn't feel great to me, but it is what it is. But at a certain age though, I think they can start to enjoy and appreciate it, that's for sure.
For sure.
But yeah, I mean, I've had nieces and nephews of varying interest and abilities as well, and it really has a pretty broad spectrum. One of my nephews was always and remains extremely mathematically oriented. He's probably going to be some sort of physicist or something, but I bought him a telescope, and his interest in actually using it and looking through it couldn't be less. He's more like, I just want to sit in front of a piece of paper and do mathematics, right? Like literally for fun sometimes. And that's cool. But we all really thought he would enjoy doing astronomy, and he just doesn't. He just doesn't do it. He can look through and see the stuff, and he's like, meh. And he's just kind of not really going to engage with it. And then one of my other nephews, who also does pretty well in math, but he really took to it from a fairly young age. I would say 5 or 6, and has always like sort of been interested. Eventually, took over that telescope and uses it to like on his own to great effect. So it all depends. But yeah, and then it depends on like people's parenting style. Like my his father is just uh, kind of lays down the rule on how much screen time they have. So they have to think of other things to do that don't involve screens. So he quite enjoys hauling the telescope out, and then if he needs to then use the computer to go and look stuff up or figure stuff out, then hey, fill your boots. And so he's like, oh, this is great. I can use my tablet, I can use a telescope, and he's just in heaven, right? Meanwhile, the other kids are trying to sort out what they're going to do, and he's sort of off enjoying himself to great ends. So yeah, it's a lot of different varying interests and abilities for sure. But yeah, out of my 6 nieces and nephews, yeah, only one of them has really taken to it, and I mean, who knows? Might do it for their entire life. I don't know. He's hunted down like most of the Messier objects now. He's 12, so it's pretty
That's
cool.
pretty, that is cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having him on the show sometime. He's a bit of an encyclopedia. I sent him a bunch of my books and he read them all apparently. And then when I met up with him once, he regurgitated most of the information to me. It was pretty amazing. So yeah, yeah, it's just yeah, it's one of those things. But we also see the same thing with adults. Like I've had people come out for the first time and have seen great things to great effect. All sorts of different people with different capabilities. I remember recently had one of my neighbors out and his partner, and when she looked through, like she was just like she could really see stuff, and I was like, "You've never looked through it." I couldn't believe maybe she had looked through a telescope once before, and I was blown away. We were doing the Titan transit, and she was able to see that like perfectly, and I was like, "Oh!" But it turns out that she's somebody who uses a microscope all the time and is, has all that kind of skill and ability coming into this, right? So, well, there's someone who can just pick it up, right? They already have
Yeah.
most of the skills to look through an instrument.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. So, yeah, as far as instruments go for young kids, I think that yeah, portable, easy to use, that sort of thing. But if other people have advice for 3 to 9 year olds, as Seth says, doing astronomy, that would be great. I just feel like everything is so technologically focused now, which might not necessarily be the easiest way to get into this. Hey,
Yeah, yeah, that's fair.
I think we've chatted about the fact that the scale can be difficult to set, even for us. That's a
Hmm.
difficult one to dial in when you're trying to observe using a screen. You have to get the scale correct, and it's a bit of a barrier. So, and that's how most people are going to want to start out these days. But I digress. Okay. Well, anything else, Shane? That, like I said, we had one from Big Observing Report from Richard, but I'm going to reach out to Richard and set him up to come and chat. He goes observing just outside of San Francisco and send us all kinds of photos and observations, especially when we can't get out. And then I keep thinking, man, it would be great just to go down and go observing. Like he gets out so much. Really
Hmm.
kind of looks like a lot of fun, eh?
Yeah, it does.
All right. Anything else to add to this show?
No, that is all.
All right, please subscribe, share the show with other stargazers you know. Send us your observations and questions to actualastronomy@gmail.com.
Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we hope you enjoyed the show. If you are interested in more information, would like to contact us, or if you would like to support the podcast, check out our website, actualastronomy.com.